The shuttle doors slid open with a hiss of pressurized air, releasing Nova Reyes into the center of the universe. A cathedral-sized docking bay stretched out before her, chrome floors, arched luminous ceilings, and windows revealing the curve of the planet below. The Celestium Institute of Advanced Species, the most prestigious academy in the galaxy. A place where political heirs, scientific prodigies, and future admirals trained. Nova stepped forward, boots hitting the polished surface with a quiet, steady rhythm. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here because Earth needed a seat at the table. Above her, a holographic welcome display rippled into existence. Arrival confirmed species, Homo sapiens, classification, Deathworld 01 danger rating, extreme. The massive hall went silent. Aliens froze mid-conversation. Some recoiled. Others stared openly, their expressions shifting from curiosity to disbelief. A scaled alien whispered loudly to a friend, forgetting Nova could hear every word. Deathworlder. That means she grew up dodging predators. A feathered student shivered. Why would the Academy admit something that dangerous? Nova ignored them. She took in the environment. Layout of exits, flow of air currents, pressure of artificial gravity. Instinct. Earth didn't give her the luxury of carelessness. A metallic chime rang through the bay. Transport to Orientation Sector C departing. A tram glided along a magnetic rail, doors opening ahead. Nova stepped toward it, but a crimson-armored figure blocked her path. He stood a full head taller. Broad shoulders marked with the silver crest of the Orixian Merit Circle, an elite academy group that ranked students by lineage and performance. His blue skin shimmered beneath complex ceremonial armor. His gold eyes analyzed her with cold calculation. Kael'thor Vrax. The name rippled through the onlookers like static through a comms line. He didn't offer space. He didn't offer courtesy. He offered a smile that wasn't a smile. We expected something. Bigger! Nova didn't answer. Silence had weight, and she used it. Kael tilted his head, voice dripping condescension. Tell me, did your species truly evolve on a world full of storms, diseases, wild beasts? A place where everything tries to kill you? Nova met his stare evenly. It taught us to adapt. His brows lifted, not in respect, but amusement. Adaptation is unnecessary here. Civilization requires refinement, not survival instincts. He stepped closer, intentionally crowding her. One of his subordinates, thin, insectoid, wings flickering, snickered. Perhaps she bites. Nova remained still, breathing slow and even. Kael snapped his fingers. A holographic sphere appeared, an object that served as a reflex test. The goal, touch it when it shifted color. Most alien students needed half a second to respond because their reflexes relied on enhanced visual spectrum cues. Kael tossed it toward her. Prove you belong here, whispers erupted. Nova didn't reach for the orb immediately. She watched it arc toward the floor. At the last moment, it flashed red and accelerated. Without thinking, Nova caught it. Not with both hands, with 2 fingers. Gasps. The insectoid student nearly choked. Kael's smile vanished. Nova offered the orb back to him, palm up. Done? Kyle didn't take it. His jaw flexed. The tram's doors closed behind her as she stepped inside, leaving him motionless on the platform. Orientation took place in the Holo Auditorium, a chamber large enough for 1,000 students. Adaptive seats shifted to accommodate different anatomies, tentacles, wings, tails, and spines. Nova sat at the edge, away from the cluster of whispering eyes. An AI projection formed at the stage's center, shaped like a floating crystalline lattice. Welcome to Celestium. You are the future of the galactic assemblage. The AI outlined core expectations: diplomacy training, zero-gravity navigation crisis simulations. Then the lights dimmed, and the starfield ceiling rotated to reveal the Academy's training arenas. Holo panels projected live footage of previous examinations, survival trials, tactical drills, emergency evacuations. Every student leaned forward, eyes bright. Nova watched without expression. Earth had given her harder lessons. The instructor appeared, Professor Solari, an elder with translucent skin and a soft, echoing voice. This semester introduces the night simulation exam. You will experience total environmental failure. Darkness, unstable gravity, limited resources. The room shifted from excitement to anxious murmurs. Night simulation, 2 words that pulled instinctual fear from species built for comfort. Solari continued. Teamwork will determine your success. Kyle turned his head toward Nova, eyes narrowed with malicious delight. His whisper carried across the rows. Should be easy for someone from the planet of monsters. Nova didn't rise to the bait, but then Kale stood and raised his hand. Professor, may we choose our own groups? Solari considered this. Voluntary grouping fosters leadership. Permission granted. A wave of movement cascaded across the auditorium as cliques formed instantly. Students flocked to Kale's side, eager to be chosen by royalty. Nova didn't move. She didn't need allies forced by fear or curiosity. Real alliances came later, after actions, not introductions. A small alien, barely shoulder height, approached timidly. Round eyes, moss-colored skin, trembling hands clutching a datapad. Hi, I think humans are fascinating. I'm Real. Before Nova could respond, Kale's voice boomed. Real. Step away from the animal. The room stiffened. Nova's eyes shifted to Kale slowly, measured, controlled. Call me an animal again. Kale smirked. Or what, you'll bite? Nova stood. A fluid, silent motion. She didn't threaten him. Didn't raise her voice, but every instinct around her shifted. She wasn't prey. She was a predator choosing restraint. Her voice was calm. Earth taught humanity one rule. Don't start a fight. End it. The auditorium held its breath. Professor Solari intervened before the tension snapped. Students, the simulation begins tomorrow. Your actions will determine your standing. The dismissal tone chimed, ending orientation. The housing wing was a long corridor lined with hexagonal dorm pods. Nova keyed open her assigned room. Spartan, efficient. A bed, a desk, a window facing the stars. She placed her small pack on the desk, unpacking her training gear. Simple, worn, functional. Then, from a hidden side pocket, she withdrew her only personal item, a folded picture. Her mother, grease up to her elbows, laughing beside an improvised fusion generator. Nova traced the corner of the paper with one finger. Her acceptance into the academy carried a single message back home. Humans don't need permission to stand among the stars. She stowed the photo away and headed toward the shower alcove. The room lights flickered. Artificial gravity trembled. Then, the station plunged into darkness. Students shouted in other pods. The sound of panic echoed through the hall. Nova stood perfectly still, her breathing slowed. Total darkness wasn't a threat. It was familiar. Her lips curved, not in fear, in recognition. Deathworld rule number 2. In the dark, everything hunts. Unseen, unnoticed, Nova smiled. The simulation hadn't even begun yet, but the Academy had just learned its first lesson. Humans don't fear the dark. Darkness swallowed the dorm corridor. Not dim lighting, not emergency red, absolute black. The kind of darkness that erased depth and dissolved walls into nothing. Nova froze, letting every sense recalibrate. A faint tremor pulsed through the floor, pressure lost somewhere in the station. From down the hall, someone screamed. Why can't I see? Another voice cracked. The adaptive lenses aren't working. My vision won't calibrate. Nova stepped into the hallway without hesitation. Blindness didn't scare her. Earth had taught her to feel space as much as see it. A tremor ran through the air system, an unnatural pause between breaths of circulating oxygen. A warning klaxon cut through the silence. System failure. Environmental control compromised oxygen distribution. Limited panic hit the alien students in waves. Nova didn't panic. She counted. 4 seconds between oxygen bursts. System struggling? Someone had tampered with it. She suspected one person, but there wasn't time to chase motives. A door hissed open behind her and a small figure stumbled out. Rill, clutching his datapad like a lifeline. His voice shook. Nova, everything's dark. My species can't handle this. Our eyes. Nova placed a hand on his shoulder. I'll guide you. He nodded, trembling. To him, darkness wasn't just frightening, it was paralyzing. Most species here evolved in predictable, safe worlds. Earth didn't offer that luxury. Nova crouched, feeling the hallway floor with her fingertips until she found the faint groove of the emergency rail. We follow this to the life support hub. Rill shuffled closer. How are you so calm? Nova's voice remained low. When you grow up where the night hunts, you learn not to make noise. Rill swallowed hard. Night hunts? Nova didn't answer. She didn't want to add more fear. The corridor pulsed with sporadic tremors. Something mechanical groaned overhead, like a creature trapped inside the walls. Students crashed into the hallway, desperate and disoriented. Their movements turned frantic, wings flapping, claws scraping walls, tentacles lashing. No coordination, only fear. A tall silhouette staggered toward Nova. She recognized the broad shoulders even before he spoke. Kael'thor. He tried to project authority, but his voice betrayed him. This isn't part of the simulation. The backups, they're not engaging. Nova didn't slow. Move. Kael reached for her arm, misjudged the distance, and grabbed empty air. You can't navigate blindly. Nova stepped around him. I'm not blind. His breath caught. He realized she was moving with certainty, fast, silent, efficient. How? Deathworld training, Rill whispered, awe-fighting panic. She's mapping the hallway. By sound. Nova kept listening, air currents, footfalls, metal stress, grounding herself in physics rather than light. A metal door slammed farther down the hall. A student was trapped. Nova moved toward the sound. Kael followed, disoriented but desperate. Wait, don't leave the group! Nova didn't break stride. Then follow. Rill clung to her sleeve, letting her lead. Kael trailed behind, bumping into walls as pride failed to compensate for lack of sight. Nova reached the sealed door and pressed her ear to the metal. Inside, someone sobbed. The panic was suffocating. I can't breathe. Please open. Nova's voice cut through the crying. I'm here. Stay still. Her hands moved along the panel until she located the manual override. The mechanism was simple, designed for emergencies, though never intended to be used in pitch dark. She pried the cover off with her fingernails and began working through the sequence by memory. Earth survival drills made every movement precise. Kael's voice wavered. How do you even know what you're touching? It's a lever system. I felt the hinge. She yanked the override. The door slid open and a feathered student collapsed into her arms, shaking. Rill gasped. You saved her. Nova steadied the trembling student, repositioning her into Kael's arms. Take her. Keep moving, Kael hesitated. Why help us? Nova didn't pause. Because people don't die on my watch. She turned down the hall toward the main environmental hub. The air pulsed thinner. Her lungs noted the shift even before the alarms updated. The oxygen level at 76% breathing rate should be reduced. Aliens began hyperventilating, making the problem worse. Nova stopped and addressed the group. Listen, slow breaths. 4 seconds in, 6 out. Oxygen lasts longer when you control your pulse. They followed her cadence. Fear eased enough for thought to return. Kael stared through the dark toward her voice. How do you know all this? A beat. Earth. It was all she needed to say. The corridor opened into a wide chamber. Nova sensed space expand around her as the air changed in pressure. The life support hub was close, but something was wrong. There was heat, and the metallic tang of burned wiring. A faint spark flashed, one tiny burst of light, revealing shattered conduits and loose power cables. Rill covered his mouth. Someone sabotaged the hub. Kael stepped forward, outrage overtaking fear. Who would risk killing the entire first-year class? Nova already knew. This wasn't random. It was personal. Kael's voice sharpened. Don't look at me. Nova didn't speak. She walked toward the main power conduit panel, hands outstretched. The metal edges were hot. Whoever tampered with the system had forced a manual shutdown. She traced wires by touch, mapping. The layout in her mind. The backup valve was jammed. Overriding it required strength. She gripped the lever with both hands. Nothing. Moved. Kale stepped forward. You don't have enough leverage. Nova adjusted her stance, planting her feet solidly. I wasn't asking your opinion. She pulled again, muscles tightened. Shoulders locked. The lever resisted, protesting with grinding metal. Her breath stayed controlled. Slow. Steady. On Earth, exertion without breathing control meant passing out in thin atmospheres. She braced and used her entire body weight. The lever snapped free, air vents roared to life, releasing a wave of fresh oxygen. Lights flickered, not fully restored, but enough to reveal their surroundings in cold, pale emergency glow. Aliens stared at Nova like she wasn't a student, but a force of nature. Rill whispered, "You saved everyone." Kale looked at her as though seeing her for the first time, not with superiority, but with shock. You didn't hesitate. Not once." Nova wiped sweat from her temple, expression steady. When lives are at stake, hesitation kills. Kale swallowed, silent. Rill tugged Nova's sleeve gently. Why do humans move so confidently in chaos? She finally met Kale's eyes. Because chaos raised us. The emergency lights faded again, dim but functional. Students began stabilizing. Panic cooled into uneasy gratitude. Kale took a step closer. Reyes, tomorrow's simulation, Nova cut him off gently but firmly. Save the speeches. Help the others. Kale closed his mouth and moved to assist students back toward their dorms. Nova exhaled. Slowly. She didn't need them to fear her. She just needed them to learn. Darkness didn't make humans dangerous. It revealed what they already were. Nova didn't sleep. She sat cross-legged on her bunk, eyes fixed on the dim emergency light strip that pulsed in a slow rhythm. Students whispered down the corridor, fear mixed with awe. Word spread faster than panic ever could. The human restored life support. She walked through the dark like she owned it. Nova ignored the chatter. She rewound every detail of the blackout, searching for patterns. The lever had been jammed deliberately, not malfunctioning. Someone tampered with the system knowing it risked lives, not a prank, an attempt to eliminate competition. A soft knock tapped on her door. Nova opened it. Rill stood there, clutching his datapad, cheeks flushed. Dean Solari wants you in the command atrium. Nova nodded and followed. The command atrium looked like a war room carved out of starlight. Screens projected station schematics, power routing, and movement logs. Kale stood beside Professor Solari, shoulders stiff, jaw set. He didn't look like the arrogant heir anymore. The darkness had stripped him raw. Solari turned toward Nova. His translucent skin shimmered faintly in the console light. Nova Reyes, a report indicates you restored power to life support sector C. Is this accurate? Nova didn't posture. Yes. Solari's gaze sharpened. 24 students would have asphyxiated. You acted without being ordered. Why? Nova answered simply. Because they needed help. Silence. Heavy and weighted. Kale swallowed, stepping forward. Professor, I hacked the training sequence. I wanted the simulation to start early. I never meant for the environmental system to collapse. The blackout wasn't supposed to. Nova cut him off. Intent doesn't erase outcome. Kale bowed his head. Humility replaced the arrogance he once wore like armor. Solari let the moment stretch until it hurt. Your recklessness endangered lives. You will face disciplinary review. Kyle nodded without argument. Solari turned back to Nova. Today's scheduled night simulation is canceled. Students exhaled in relief. Solari tapped the control pad once. Instead, Nova will lead Evacuation Team 1. Kyle will serve under her. Gasps erupted across the room. Kyle stared at Solari, stunned. Under her authority? Solari didn't blink. Command is earned, not inherited. Kale's jaw tightened. But he bowed slightly toward Nova. Understood. Training arena. 2 hours later, the arena was a labyrinth of shifting walls, malfunctioning lights and simulated structural failures designed to overwhelm even experienced cadets. Nova stepped in first. Her breath steadied. The darkness was no longer suffocating, just quiet. She didn't waste emotional energy on fear. Focus, track sounds, map movement, move with purpose. Kale's voice echoed behind her. Just tell me what to do. Nova scanned the room. No light, no visual cues, pure void. Team stays together. No shouting. We listen more than we speak. Rill squeaked from somewhere behind Kyle. Listen to what? Nova held up one finger. Airflow. The vents always guide to exits. She moved her palm through the air. Slow, deliberate. Warm air to her left, cooler ahead. That meant one vent was blowing outward, another pulling in. This way! The team followed. Kyle's voice was low. How does anyone grow up like that? Nova didn't turn. Earth wasn't designed for comfort. We adapted. He absorbed the words slowly, like each one rearranged his world view. A sharp crack echoed, metal stress from above. Warning, structural instability. Ceiling collapse imminent. Rill froze. Kale grabbed him, pulling him backward as a support beam slammed down where the alien had just stood. Nova didn't flinch. Good reaction. Keep moving, Kale blinked. You're complimenting me? Don't get used to it. For the first time, Kyle laughed. A short, shocked sound, as if he'd forgotten how. Halfway through the maze, alarms blared. Simulated hull breach. Pressure loss imminent mist sprayed from the wall. Students panicked, scattering. Nova barked an order. Group! To me, something in her tone, sharp, grounded, cut through chaos. Even students not assigned to her fell back toward her voice like gravity. Kale looked at her with disbelief. How are you doing this? Nova crouched and traced the vibrating tiles on the floor. Find the resonance. Wherever vibration is strongest, that's where systems still function. Kale followed, copying her technique. He located the panel and forced it open, his strength finally useful. Nova nodded once. Vent override. Pull it! Kale gripped the lever and heaved. His arms trembled, but he held steady. The vent sealed, stopping the simulated breach. Students gasped as pressure stabilized. Nova didn't celebrate. She moved. Final obstacle. The drop. The path ended at a chasm splitting the arena. A fall would mean failure. The bridge mechanism flickered, refusing to activate. Kale turned to Nova. I can jump it. I'll carry the others. Nova shook her head. No, strength doesn't lead. Strategy does. She scanned the edge, scanning airflow again. A faint suction to the right, ventilation. There! She dropped to one knee, felt along the floor, found the recessed latch and pressed. A maintenance platform rose from beneath them, forming a stable crossing. Rill exhaled a trembling laugh. Nova, do humans just sense solutions? No, she said. We practice until we stop freezing under pressure. Kyle stared at her for a long moment. You weren't surviving the dark? Nova stepped onto the platform. I was mastering it. They crossed. The arena lighting surged from black to bright white. Test complete. Students erupted in applause from the observation deck. Solari stood above them, expression unreadable, though pride flickered behind his crystalline eyes. End of simulation. Team 1, completed with 0 casualties. Kale approached Nova, then dropped to one knee, not in submission, in respect. Human, teach me. The arena fell silent. Nova looked down at him, not triumphant, not gloating, just honest. I don't want followers, Kale. I want equals. Kale rose slowly. Then guide me until I earn that. Nova offered her hand. He took it, not as rivals, not as predator and prey, as cadets who survived darkness together. Later, alone by the viewport overlooking Verelion 5, Rill tugged Nova's sleeve. They mocked the Deathworld girl. Now they look at you like, Nova finished for him. Like they finally understand humans. Rill blinked. Understand what? Nova watched the stars. We don't endure darkness because we're fearless. We endure it because someone has to lead the way. Outside, the station rotated past the line of dawn. Light breaking across the hull like applause. Nova didn't smile. She didn't need to. Humanity had arrived. And the galaxy just learned why Deathworlders climb. The academy felt different the next morning. Nova sensed it before she stepped out of her dorm. Whispering followed her again, not from mockery this time, but from realization. Instead of stepping aside in fear, students parted out of respect. Screens along the halls displayed highlights from yesterday's simulation. Nova lifting the lever, shielding students, directing the team through total blackout conditions without panic. A headline scrolled beneath the footage. Human student prevents mass casualty event. Leads team to flawless victory. Nova didn't pause to admire it. She didn't come here to be a headline. Council Review Chamber. Level 37 Professor Solari stood at a table surrounded by the senior academic board. Their holographic insignias floated above them, every species represented. Kale stood beside Nova, shoulders squared and posture rigid. Rill sat behind them, clutching his data pad like a protective charm. A member of the council, a tall, silver-skinned Helion, spoke first. Nova Reyes, we summoned you to assess whether your conduct violated Academy protocol. Nova waited, steady. You defied grouping rules. You took initiative without authorization. You restored life support systems without clearance. Kyle stepped forward. She saved us, members murmured. The Helion lifted a hand to silence him. Motive does not excuse breach of chain of command. Nova locked eyes with the council member. Calm. I didn't break chain of command. There wasn't one. A few council members shifted. The Helion frowned. Nova continued. When systems failed, when oxygen dropped, when students scattered, no one acted. There was no leader, no direction, only panic. Kyle's gaze dropped. He knew she was right. Solari tapped the table once. She speaks the truth. The Helion shifted his data pad, skimming logs. But humans, your species has a reputation for instinctive aggression. Nova didn't flinch. Instinct isn't aggression. Instinct is clarity when everyone else loses theirs. Silence. Every council member watched her, waiting. A true leader doesn't need to be obeyed, Nova finished. A true leader inspires others to choose to follow. The room shifted. Solari smiled, barely noticeable, just a faint curve of approval. Kale broke the tension. I request reassessment of leadership rankings. Nova should be ranked above me. That shocked the council more than anything Nova said. The Helion's tone softened. Kyle Thor, the Eryxian Merit Circle has never acknowledged an outsider. Kyle lifted his chin. The circle values strength, but I confused strength with dominance. She showed strength through responsibility, the council whispered among themselves. Their murmurs blended like wind through a metal canyon. Solari stood. Vote. Lights blinked on each representative's console. Decisions tallied across the chamber. Green, 1 red. 1 abstained. Result, Nova Reyes, officially recognized leadership cadet, rank A1. A small beep confirmed the update on Nova's wrist implant. Leadership privileges, access to secured areas, direct influence over academy training. Kale turned toward her, voice low. You earned it. Nova nodded once, acknowledging the sincerity without indulging it. Training field. Hours later. The academy watched as Nova walked onto the outdoor grav field, where students practiced tactical maneuvers in simulated alien environments. Today, she wasn't here to prove anything. She was here to teach. Rill and Kale stood at her side, awaiting instructions. Nova faced the full group. You handled darkness once. Now you'll handle terrain. She tapped a control panel. Gravity rippled beneath their feet and shifted from stable to uneven. Students stumbled. Kale nearly fell but caught himself. Nova pointed at the field. Lesson 1, balance isn't about footing. It's about the spine and breath, she demonstrated, lowering her center of gravity and adjusting to the tilt of the ground. Kale mirrored her movements carefully. Rill wobbled, but Nova steadied him by gently correcting his elbow angle. Stability isn't strength, she said. It's control. A Drolian student, scaled, bulky, skeptical, stepped forward. Why would a Deathworlder teach us? Shouldn't you be using that advantage against us? Nova steadied her stance. If I help you, we grow together. If I hold knowledge hostage, we stay enemies. The Drolian blinked. She wasn't speaking like a warrior. She was speaking like someone building a future. Mid-session. Gravity. Spike without warning, the grav field surged. A pressure spike slammed down on the students, dropping them to their knees. Nova alone stayed standing, bracing her body with automatic precision. The control panel blinked red. Not a training feature, a malfunction. Again. Rill gasped. "Someone is hacking internal systems again," Kale snarled. "Whoever it is, they're targeting her." The field pressure increased. Students struggled for breath as the weight forced them down. Nova moved into action. "Kale, anchoring stance. Lower your hips. Don't resist. Redirect the pressure." Kale followed her instructions and managed to push to a kneel. Nova crossed the field with deliberate steps. Rill tried to stand, but gravity pinned him. Nova reached him and braced her arm under his. "Lean on me. Together." They moved toward the emergency shutoff relay. The pressure spiked again, enough to crush bone if sustained, but Nova timed the pulses. Earth taught rhythm through storms. Waves wind, forces that punished hesitation. At the relay, she planted her feet and pressed both palms against the manual override panel. Kale staggered beside her, bracing his shoulder against it. "On 3, Nova's breath sharpened. 1, Kale grunted. 2, 3. They shoved together. The override disengaged. Gravity normalized in an instant. Students collapsed, not in exhaustion, but relief. Solari appeared a moment later, robes swaying with each step. That was not part of the exercise. He looked directly at Nova. "You saved them again." Nova wiped sweat from her brow. "Someone wants me gone." Solari eyed her with a new intensity. "Or someone fears what you represent." Later, observation. Deck night blanketed the academy. Below them, Verelion 5 glowed like a soft teal marble. The silence was deep, peaceful. Kale leaned against the railing, staring out at the stars. "When I first saw you, I wanted to break you." Nova didn't respond. Kale's voice dropped, unfiltered. "Now all I want is to learn what makes humans impossible to crush." Nova looked at him, not as a competitor, not as a threat, as potential. "We aren't unbreakable," Kale's voice barely carried. "You made it look that way." "No." Nova turned her gaze back to the stars. "Humans break. We just get back up while bleeding." Kale absorbed that. Rill looked between them and smiled timidly. "Is this what friendship looks like?" Nova didn't smile, but her voice softened in a way it never had before. "It looks like progress." A quiet moment passed before Solari's voice echoed over the general comms. "All cadets, report to the central atrium at dawn. Humanity will address the Interstellar Council." Rill nearly choked. Kale stared. "You're going to speak before the entire Galactic Assembly?" Nova inhaled slowly. "No, I'm going to represent Earth, because the galaxy had spent centuries calling humans dangerous. It was time to show them why."